Welcome back, everyone, to Cybersecurity with Python and the Microbit v2.0. This is day 3 of the workshop on Friday, August 26th at 3 p.m. Pacific. Today we'll start, I don't know, we'll either do a little bit of review or some questions and answers. And after that, we'll finish out brute force, take a look at the Cyberbot robot, and then Dr. Chuck Gardner from cyber.org will be joining us to talk about their curricular offerings and upcoming workshops and events. After that, I'll go over our educator resources that are at Parallax. You'll have seen the extensive resources at cyber.org. Just before that, we'll also talk about some upcoming workshops you might be interested in also going to after this one, how to buy microbits and Cyberbot robots, questions, answers, and a little bit of wrap-up discussion. All right, everybody ready to go? Okay, happy Friday, by the way. Okay, so actually, for the review, I think one thing that I'd really like to talk about, I got a question from a teacher between Friday or between Wednesday and today about, gee, I'm interested in kind of a just a slower pace Python, how to program in Python, just really focused on that. We kind of went very quickly through Python programming. This has been very topical. We've sort of skipped across the top of a lot of different subjects without, really going deeply into the how-to of Python programming. And so I wanted to start out by going to learn.parallax.com and just making sure that folks could see that there is a good getting started with Python resource. And this was actually a collaboration between Parallax and cyber.org, and it's a chapter you're going to be familiar with. Let's see here. Where is it? Cyberbot. The writing microbit programs. Now, for homework, before the class before this workshop started, I had everybody do the very first code example in several of the sections so that we could cover just the very most basics of basics, those being communicate. The device needs to be able to communicate with the user. Remember, as in store and recall values. Calculate, solve math problems. Decide, use conditionals to make decisions. And then count and repeat. So those are the most basic of Python programming concepts. And then this chapter extends it a little bit more and goes into writing functions, for example. And so what I want to emphasize is that when you are getting started with Python, if you're new to Python, the way to not learn Python is to copy the text and paste it in and try it out. The way to learn Python is going to be to read through the explanation. And then when you get to a checklist instruction that says enter and save this, enter and flash this code to your microbit, what you want to do is actually if you're new to Python, the very best thing to do is to actually type it in. Like so, and then run it. Make sure that it works. And I think it was on this one. Yeah, so here we have our hello. Restart it. And then the next thing that the tutorial is going to do is explain how, well, it's going to mention about there's a reset button you can press to restart it. It's going to explain how it works. It's going to give you something to try to expand it. And then here again, it's going to be important for your benefit to, again, if you're new to Python, for those of you who are familiar with Python already, you know, this doesn't apply to you, but it definitely applies to you if you're new to Python. And so basically, again, read the material, follow the checklist instructions, manually type in the program, and also, you know, something might occur to you to try. And if it does occur to you to try it, so we tried to give you a try this in every chapter so that there is a, you know, well, gee, what if you wanted to change it to, in this case, display hello for a certain amount of time and then display goodbye for another amount of time. So it's really important to then make your own change to the code and try to predict what's going to happen, and then either be glad that your prediction was right, or try to figure out why your prediction didn't pan out and fix it. And then along the way, always save your work. Remember to put the script name up here, use load save, download the project hex. If you do that, that's going to give you a good start on the Python programming basics. Now, also, if we go back to the front page here, there are additional lessons. There's computer microbit talk, dictionary primer, exception handling primer, and strings and characters. And each one of those, I would still recommend, if you're new to Python, doing the same thing, reading the material leading up to the first example, then following the checklist instructions and trying each example. So that's one good way to learn Python. Now, there is another good way, and that is, or, you know, an additional resource that you might find to be helpful is simply clicking help and going to documentation. There is, these are all tutorials for learning Python, and it's kind of the microbit approach to learning Python. So they have their own hello world, and they then introduce conditionals for pressing and releasing buttons, which also happens back in the parallax version as well. So these are two different resources where you can go through and methodically, step by step, learn, get familiar with Python, strengthen your coding skills, and so you can be confident when you're teaching. Does anybody else have any? Oh, yeah, there's one more thing before I open that up for questions and comments, and that is, let's see, www.parallax.com. I believe if we go search for like Python programming, there is also a printed textbook that you can buy. And it would be a similar thing where you've got the textbook open, you're reading through, typing in the code examples, trying them out and such. So that's another way to get more familiar with Python. Okay, any questions, comments, additional resources that you find to be super useful for learning Python?
I agree with what you said on typing it in, not just copying it, hacking it, changing something, breaking it, going back to what it was. Simon Monk's books are really nice. He's done a good job and written all kinds of different books in the physical computing world.
Okay. Is this a Simon? Yeah, this is a Simon Monk book. Okay. Excellent. All right. So there are some resources for those of you who are looking for a Python, you know, a more Python just the Python workshop, I would recommend an at your own pace approach, simply following through the tutorials, especially if you're thinking about teaching this. It'll be good to strengthen up on that. All right, with that said, let us move on to brute force. So during the previous session, we went all the way from radio basics, radio data, encryption, and sniffing attacks and defenses. And so now we are at the last chapter available in the cybersecurity segment, which is brute force attacks. And my wife in the evening was very busy doing brute force attacks after she found a box where we put our old combo locks that we couldn't remember the combinations of. And so she performed brute force attacks on, well, she'd be watching, various TV series and winding down at night. She would enter every possible combination into our various bike locks that we couldn't remember their combinations, and got them all brute force attacked successfully. So now when we want to take a bike ride, we can grab one of those bike locks and it's ready to use. So that is really just a very fundamental explanation of what brute force attacks are. Is you're essentially trying to get access to unlock something or to crack a cipher by trying every different combination that's available. And when you get the result that you're looking for, then you know you have successfully completed the brute force attack. So brute force attacks usually, if you're looking at a keyboard and you're going to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 characters on your keyboard, if you have 94 character options for your password for, say, BitLocker to secure a disk drive, that gives you, let's see here, millions, billions, so 6 quadrillion different options, because it's 94 times 94. For every extra character that you type, you multiply by another 94. So if you added one more character to that password, you would have this massive number times 94 in order to find the code that you'd use to get into, in this case, a BitLocker protected drive. This is the Enigma machine that was used by Germany in World War II to encrypt their instructions to their troops. And it was very difficult, and radio communication, and it was very difficult for the US to crack. And this is a machine that was developed to try to crack those codes. And it actually has has a rotating key, like Alan mentioned on, I think, Monday. You asked about the rotate. It was either Monday or Wednesday. You asked about the rotating key, and so that made it very confounding to break the cipher. And the bomb machine here was one of the tools that was used to do it. And that's just kind of a side note on some of the history of brute force attacks. Now, this particular lesson, when I was developing the Cyberbot Robot lessons, where this material that we've been going over was peeled out of, this lesson was to stay consistent with cyber.org's curriculum, because they, and in fact, Chuck, is this your creation, the bank vault?
Yeah, that was something we did back with the Bobot.
Yeah.
Early on. Yep.
Oh, okay. Wow, you were doing it with the Bobot robot. Oh, okay, nigh on a decade ago then. Oh, that's awesome. Anyway, so so this is actually out of cyber.org's list, and we have it here just to stay consistent with their material. And so I'd like to try this one out. And what you're going to be doing here is typing in, using the A key to choose between 0 and 1, where a single dot is a 0, A button, pardon me, where a single dot is a 0, and then the whole column of dots represents a 1. And so 011 is going to be the correct password. And we just want to make sure that we can use the microbit to radio request access to another microbit's vault in quotation marks. And so with 3 binary digits, there's going to be 2 times 2 times 2 times, so that there are going to be 8 possible combinations of codes to break into this vault if a brute force attacker were wanting to do so. And so the first thing we want to do is try it out and make sure that as a legitimate user of the vault, that you can use the microbit to either not open the vault by typing in an incorrect password, or open the vault by typing in the correct one. So I'm going to paste in these code examples to you. And this is, again, something where we want to have our 2 microbits connected and be ready to run the code, which was part of your homework. So here we go. Here is your transmitter code. Here is your receiver code, and I'll also paste in the web page right after this. And I'll show you how to do this in a second. Get this into my editors as well. So that basically this copying and pasting I'm doing is essentially the opposite of what we'd want to do to learn this inside out. Manual entry would be much better here, but we wouldn't really be able to take a look at and talk about the aspects of certain lessons that we're doing. So, so I'm erring on the side of covering a lot of stuff topically that you can go back through at your leisure in more detail before teaching it. Okay, so we want to flash both the pin pad transmitter and pin pad receiver in. Remember, you can also, whoopsie. Let's try that again. Copy. Okay. You can hit load save and download project hex. That's another reminder of something we did on Monday, was to save your work, set your script name, hit load save, and then download project hex. Okay, and then they both have to be flashed. I might not have done that. And then what you're going to have is you're going to have one microbit that has a dot in the center. That is your vault microbit. And keep in mind that these are all covered in instructions on the page, just as everything else we've done. I want to emphasize that the instructions are there for the students to follow. Then the other microbit is going to start out with a 0, which is right there. So it's going to have a dot in the corner. Now, if you want to change that to a 1, you'll go ahead and hit the A button. Oh, the A button will toggle between 1 and 0. And the B button will take you to the next digit. Now, I actually accidentally entered in 011. So we're going to, as soon as I hit the B button one more time, we'll see a check mark over here indicating that vault entry was granted. Then, I'm going to restart this microbit. I don't know what I did wrong there. All right. Now, if you type in an incorrect password, so 001 instead, you'll get an X. So that's what I'd like you all to do to start with is basically make sure that a correct value of 011 will get you into the vault, and an incorrect value of anything other than 011 will not let you in. You'll get an X instead of a check mark. And can I get some thumbs as to good job, Alan? Thank you, Stan. Good job. Marcel, way to go. Ivan, excellent. Robert, right on. Nancy, awesome. Okay, looks like most of us have it going now. Good job, everyone. And okay. So now let's look at a script approach. So the students can then basically, because of the fact that we only have 8 options, one student can change this pin from 011 to some value of their choosing. And then another student can try actually manually using the buttons to brute force, and it's not going to take up the whole class period. Chuck wisely chose a very limited range of values for the very first example. Now let's see here. Next up is now we'll look at a script that actually does the brute force attack to break into the vault. And you can see hopefully here in this animation that when it gets to 011, the access is granted because it goes through each of the different options. And so this one, all we want to do is we don't want to change our receiver at all. We just want to change the transmitter so that instead of running the code where we hit the A button and then the B button and so on, that for me is so find your pin pad transmitter, and we'll want to paste over that one. Okay, so I'll paste this code in, and hopefully it's not too long for the, or no, I better paste the, this time I'm just gonna, I'm almost positive that this code is too much for the chat. So I will chat in the web page itself. There you go. Okay, so go to that web page, copy bankvaultcrack.py, and then paste it over pinpadtransmitter.py.
That didn't work either. You had to, yeah.
And then you can actually leave the bank vault receiver running and just flash the bank vault crack to the transmitter. And we can actually open serial on both of these. I think we'll see some things happening in serial. Now, what's going to happen is in your transmitter, it's going to point at the A button. And then, of course, since we haven't changed our receiver, it's just going to show that dot in the center indicating that it's waiting for a pin. And so when you press and release the A button, then the script will commence with its trial and error approach of brute force trying to crack that pin. And so we can see the different numbers both on the display and in the terminal. And notice that when it gets to 011, this is access granted. And so this is a microcosm of, or, you know, a very simple microcosmic, as it were, example of what's going on when hackers are trying to get access to passwords so that they can get in to access things that they're not supposed to access. And this is just one of many approaches that are used. This one is called the brute force approach. And so this is a script that is again, a super simple example of how a brute force attack could be mounted against like a bank site or an ATM or something like that. Are there any questions or comments before we move on to the next activity? Okay, good deal. As always, just go ahead and unmute yourself and say, hey, Andy. Of course, the chats are fine too. And if Ari sees something that is, he might just answer you in the chat, or he might say, hey, Andy, stop. We've got a question that might be useful for everyone. Okay, so we're going to go up one level of complexity with the decimal vault pin. So this is going to use 3 different numbers that can go up to a value of 6. And that's because each column here has 5 LEDs. So you can have them all off, which would be 0. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 0 to 5 is a total of 6 options. Again, with digits and a pin, what we're doing now is we're going up to 216 possible combinations because it's 6 times 6 times 6. I don't know what that 63 is doing there. But I think that I'm going to try to remove that after this workshop is over. All right. Or figure out why it's actually there. I don't think it should be.
It's the 3 is supposed to be an exponent, 6 to the 3rd.
Oh, thank you, Chuck. That's right. Okay, so we need to get that fixed.
Math is perfect. Math is perfect.
All righty. Yes, of course it's 6 to the 3rd. All right. Yeah, it's funny when I'm presenting, just doing simple arithmetic and other things like that, that doesn't go so well. All righty, so let's paste these through to you. And it's a similar routine of hitting I think the A key to one of the 2 buttons. I'll tell you in a second which one, to add lights, as in digits, to one of the numbers. And then the B key, I believe, to move on to the next value. Chat. Paste. And okay, so that was the transmitter I pasted in before. Then here is the receiver code for the decimal pin pad. And then here also is the web address. Okay, so after those are in, we'll go ahead and flash both of them. And I don't remember exactly what it shows, if anything, on the screen, but we'll see that in a second. So the main thing is, again, you're going to have your vault is now a slightly different icon, a little square. And then right now, this is a blank screen. And if I take the A button, I can hit it 1, 2, 3 times, then advance to B, hit it 2 times, and then advance again with B, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's the 3, 2, 4 that we expect to be the correct. And see on the left there, we have a check mark now. And then you can do maybe 1, 1, 1, and you'll see that that's an incorrect vault password. And nothing on the screen, so I'll go ahead, and I couldn't remember whether we had any print statements in that one or if it was all strictly the microbit. So go ahead and give me a thumbs up once you've got it running. But man, you're so fast, Alan. Marcel, you guys are racing through this now. Good job. Looking good, Adam, Ivan, Robert. Evan, excellent. Christopher, thank you. Stan, awesome. All right, I think that's about everybody. Okay, so next up then would be an example of, okay, so what is a what does a decimal vault bank crack look like? And the answer is really that it's almost identical to the binary one. This is something I don't think we really talked about, but there are we've done for loops before, but there are this is a kind of a special version of a for loop where instead of specifying that it go through all of these digits in the list by saying, oh, gee, I counted 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's actually a total of 6 digits. So you could say for A in range 0, 6. But Python also has this nice feature of basically recognizing, it's called auto iteration, where it will automatically iterate through the different pieces of an object and then recognize it's gotten to the end and finish for you. So if you haven't seen that before because you're doing more of, say, C programming, this is a Python nicety, is that you can just tell it, hey, take a variable and use that variable to count through all the possibilities in whatever object that has multiple things in it you're working with. And so there are 3 different numbers, each with 6 digits. And so what it does is it says, hey, okay, let's start with A here, the first digit, and then the second digit, and then the third digit. So on this, or actually, this is probably the first digit. So on this first digit, it's going to go through and try all the different options. And so this is code right here that is basically creating a string with A, B, and C, these 3 digits, which are grabbed from the digits up here. And so it has to have this nested loop where it goes through all 6 options here, and then the program moves out and changes the next digit, then goes through and does all 6 options again. And then once we've gotten through 36 repeats of this and 6 repeats of this, then it goes and moves on to this one as well. And so this is a nested set of for loops, and that is what was used to create this decimal bank vault crack. And I'm going to have you guys start this, but we're not going to sit and stare at it until it solves the pin. See if the script, no, it won't paste in. So I'll have to give you the address again. Copy. Paste. So again, all you need to do is copy this from the decimal bank vault page and paste it over the decimal pin pad transmitter script.
And we have a question from Allen. You want to open microphone and say?
Yeah, I was just curious. With the other ones, you were kind of taking advantage of the LEDs and having the 25, the 5x5 matrix. With this one, you're using 6 to the 3rd, which is fine. I was just curious, having not yet seen the code, whether the LEDs were at all involved, or this is just an issue of cracking 6 to the 3rd.
This one we're displaying both. So this one uses both print. It should use both print. I apologize. Let me check the code real quick.
It did. When you cracked it, it showed the digits that you had entered.
Yeah, but it shows it in on the pixel display. I just don't remember if it shows it also in the
It shows it in both.
okay. Okay, excellent. I thought it did. I remember modifying the code so that it showed it in both, but I may have been off by an example. So let's try it. Let's take a look at this.
If I can real quick elaborate while you're running these, what Alan was getting at, I think, was in the past, a digit was indicated by lighting an LED. In this case, a digit is also indicated by not lighting an LED. There's a 0 that we can program in this case with no LEDs lit, and then 1 through 5, which is where we get the 6 to the 3rd from.
Yeah, and I think I may not have flashed my program because that's not looking right.
You as well.
Flash. Open serial. And I believe you're supposed to just hit this arrow pointing to the A button to start. Yeah, so it's automatically going. It should automatically. There we go. So now it's automatically going through and trying each different code. So it's trying 200, 300, or 001, 002, 003, etc. And so then now it's going back and doing 010, 0 or 011, 012, and then each time it's failing, and it won't pass until we get to 324. So one thing you can do if you want the students to see it happen more quickly is you could do like 003. Reflash this, and then reflash this, and then they will see kind of a beginner's luck version where when it gets to 003, which should be the next digit, now it has cracked the code.
Although leaving it at 324 gives you about 30 minutes where you can just relax.
Or end up having Alan task you with something else to solve in the meantime. Yeah, and so that's why I put the screen grab of the, or oh no, this is a GIF. That's why I made this little GIF to show what it looks like when you eventually get to 324, pardon me. Okay. So, gee, if it's that easy to, I mean, so again, this is just showing, okay, if you have more possibilities, you have, you know, you're making it harder for the attacker to get inside your vault. This script can be just run in 1 microbit, and all it does is it shows how you can add a code that basically counts the number of failures to get access. And then basically, if you get to the 3rd failure, in this case, the microbit is going to make you wait for an hour to redo it. So let's see, did I copy that? Copy. Paste. Okay. So and this one is just an open serial thing where the correct answer is still 324. And so we can get it wrong once and then maybe do 324 and we get access. But if you do it wrong 3 times in a row, now the script is paused. Of course, since there is mechanical access to things that an ATM wouldn't give people mechanical access to, you could just press and release the reset button on the microbit to restart it, and that would be a way around it. But in general, what it's showing is, you know, hey, here is how to slow down an attacker if they have 3 million 3 million different combinations, but they have to wait for an hour after they get it wrong 3 times, then it really wouldn't be worth using brute force approach. So that's a way to essentially discourage cyber attacks of that nature.
This explains to the students as well why they have to be careful when entering their username and password, that if they try 3 times, at least with ours in Active Directory, we lock them out for 15 minutes.
Ah, wow. I thought it was excruciating to wait for 30 seconds on our network. Okay. So there's also, so when we did encryption, we did a number of different ciphers. And this is a revisit of the Caesar cipher, sending the different emotion emojis from one microbit to another, and using encryption. And so this is basically, okay, if we make a good guess that the Caesar cipher is the encryption being used, maybe we can use a brute force attack to figure out what key the Caesar cipher is using. And let's see, bear with me a second. Here it is. Okay. So, so we have 2 programs here. One is going to use random to figure out what key it's going to use. Regrettably, that's pseudo-random. Hopefully some of your sharp students will notice that it starts at the same value each time. And then here is a receiver that's going to use brute force to look at what it received and try to figure out what the key was, assuming that the Caesar cipher is what was used. So let's see, chat. I'm going to paste in the web page because I think these scripts are just too long for the chat. And so we'll have you all paste, try out the transmitter and receiver codes. And these ones are going to be using print as opposed to the LED display. No, I'm sorry. Well, it's better to use print on the receiver. Okay, so I've got my transmitter in, and I'll do the receiver. Flash them both. So, it's funny, I still have my pin pad on the receiver, and so it was showing me an X for an incorrect combination pin flash. Open serial. Now, when you open serial on the receiver, what it's going to do is it's going to show you each time it receives a message, it's going to try all the different keys. Assuming a Caesar cipher, it's going to go through the 26 offsets in the alphabet and try to decode based on each one of those. And then it's up to the brute force attacker to go through and see if they can find something that is recognizable. So in this case, lo and behold, we see sad with a key of 10, negative 10 to decrypt. So let's take a look at negative 10. Oh, wow. Looks like we have definitely cracked a encryption cipher. So now that would make it possible for the user to go back and perform a sniffing attack to monitor the communication between these two microbits, the emoji communication.
Question.
Yes.
If, let's say I define my own image and my image name, rather than being image.sad, is now just image.x3407. So you've got brute force without being able to necessarily see that I see an angry, sad, and meh, or whatever. I'm assuming that would make things more complicated, because if in fact my key were 21 or negative 21, and you see PCVGN, and you go to look for the next one, there wouldn't be a logic to it.
Yeah.
Is that sort of the same as not using password for your password?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely an example of a step in strengthening the cipher. And it would be interesting to throw that one at the students and actually see if a student can, you know, one of the more clever students is going to potentially come up with a methodology to actually figure out what's being transmitted. But the other part of that lesson is that once you add enough encryption, it may not be worth trying to use brute force. That's why other things such as social engineering exist to get to passwords in a rather devious way. Social engineering is kind of a scary thing. For those of you who haven't heard of social engineering, that's basically an approach where you pose as somebody who should have access to the password and get some unwitting person to actually give you that access, even though you're really not a person who should have access.
There are some great Jimmy Kimmel clips. You got to be careful sometimes because of language if you want to show them to your students, where they send a reporter out to the street and they'll flat out ask, so what's your password? Well, I'm not going to tell you my password. But then they go on to ask, well, what's your name? What's your favorite this? What do you think goes into a good password? And then all of a sudden they know their password by the end of their 2-minute conversation. And it was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just gave you my password, because then they realize, oh, you know, because we base it on this and that or whatever. And oh yeah, there's some great YouTube clips that you can find to share with students about the ability to, how they social engineered it right out of the people on the street.
Yeah, that is really neat. I'm definitely gonna go watch those. That sounds like a lot of fun just to watch in the evening to see what they're doing. Okay. So next up, oh, did everybody get that running? Awesome. Way to go. All right. Now, so Alan, your question is kind of jumping ahead of where I was going with it. Now, I didn't, basically, I'm hoping that the students will have a takeaway from this, that there are certain variations in the strength of a cipher that will still make it worth trying to crack. So in this case, I switched from the Caesar cipher to just an ASCII shift. So from basically 26 options to 94 options, the printable characters. And so this is essentially the same activity, but using a different cipher. And so there's a couple things going on here. The first one is there has to be an educated guess made by an attacker of what kind of cipher they're using. And then the brute force attack has to be tailored to that particular cipher. So you guys can try these out. Here's the page. There you go. And so in this case, the cipher is still rather weak. And it's not going to be good enough to really get past a brute force attack. And it's a lesson in, hey, just because you made an improvement, that doesn't mean that it's impossible to crack. And so, so we are still sending the happy, sad, angry faces. And it's showing the encrypted version that's being sent. And then when you run the code for cracking that cipher, you have to wait until it receives one, but then once it's received one, it's going to go through and try all 94 different keys. And then the student will have to again examine it and see if something discernible pops up. Now you can just basically scroll back up a little bit to get it to stop moving on the screen. And but it will still continue to populate downward. And so let's see where that random oh, looks like the key here was 11. And then if we go to another attempt to crack it, yeah. So in this case, since there's not a rotating key like Alan suggested, we've already got it cracked. It's 11. And so then we could go through and jump back to the normal receiver code and actually be privy to all these encrypted messages. Here's another step in terms of strength of cipher. And then this is also going to basically take us to something that Alan mentioned, which is essentially, now this ought to be small. Let's see if I can get this pasted into the chat. So this is basically, at this point, we're going to start arming the students with some more ciphers and challenging them to incorporate it into their scripts. And so this is just an example script that's using a custom cryptobit, basically a scrambled alphabet. And you only need to do this in one terminal, and then you can go ahead and run it, and then, or one microbit, and then you can go ahead and run it. I'll actually do it in 2 microbits just so we can look at the code versus the, okay, so I'll flash my second microbit here and run the code. Okay, so so we want a caps lock. I think actually, yeah, it is looking for capital letters. Yes, it is. Okay. All right, so if we type in something like happy, what it shows is that it scrambles it using a custom alphabet. So basically it goes and finds the letter H and gives you back R. Then it goes and finds the letter A and gives you back P. And as far as pure brute force goes with this kind of encryption, it's still relatively weak. However, it's not crackable by brute force, because in the case of using a scrambled alphabet to encrypt your message, if you're using brute force for 26 possible characters, there are 26 factorial possibilities. And so so that this lesson shows, okay, well, 3 factorial is 1 times 2 times 3. 4 factorial is 1 times 2 times 3 times 4. And so when we get to 26 factorial, I don't even know what number that is. I'd have to go and onto Wikipedia, because I don't normally deal with numbers that large except in scientific notation. So I don't know if they have a name for this number. But regardless, it's a super huge number. There's too many combinations. There would be no point in trying to hack that, except that, as Alan pointed out, a brute force is not the only method. And so a student could look for common patterns, because we don't have a key that changes periodically. There are some other cute programs in here, like a script that generates a custom cryptobit for you. The students can also essentially start pulling, put 26 letters in a hat and pull them out one at a time and sort them, but that gets a little bit onerous. So here's a cute script that gives you a custom cryptobit. And then essentially the students are challenged to say, okay, well, gee, I just learned how to use a new function that uses a scrambled alphabet. So what this does is it sends them back to that same activity where they're sharing a smile, frown, or angry emoji, and use the custom cryptobit to do that. And then it takes it one step further. And this is assuming that you have the Cyberbot robot. And it's saying, all right, well, there's only so many characters that are needed for the Cyberbot robot, but since it's this many characters factorial, there's still going to be a very large number of different keys, so to speak. And so so go ahead and try strengthening your cipher using this custom cryptobit. Oh, 19 factorial. I wasn't reading far through enough. But again, it's another way of going against brute force, which isn't the only way. There are other ways, like looking for common patterns, like looking for the number of characters. If you're doing happy, angry, sad, you'll a student will be able to still figure it out very quickly. He or she won't be able to figure it out using a brute force attack. And so that concludes brute force. Are there anything anyone wants to talk about before we move on to look at the Bobot robot? After which I'm sorry, we'd better do a short break. Let's take a 5-minute break. We'll reconvene at 7 minutes past. I'll show you about the Cyberbot robot and then pass the mic to Chuck to tell you a lot about what they're offering at cyber.org. Okay, so we'll see you all in 5 minutes. It's 4:02, so we'll see you at 4:07. Adjusted for your time zone. What's that?
Do you want to pause the recording, or we just?
Well, I think we had some good conversations last time, and it's not going to hurt to have those appear in the.
Yeah, they can skip ahead if they want.
Yes, yeah, that's
5
true.
minutes.
So everybody who doesn't want to watch the static screen for 5 minutes, go ahead and slide your video navigation forward by 5.
It's a little bit like when we were teaching remotely, that you've got 2 kids with cameras on and everybody else.
With their cameras off.
Yeah,
Is that the Zoom equivalent of sitting in the front of the class?
yeah. Everyone else right now is probably sitting in a bar doing their tequila. I'm still stuck in my room.
With
where you
tea,
at, Alan?
presumably.
Yeah.
It's water.
Okay.
I'll hit the tequila in a couple hours.
Yeah.
Where you at, Alan?
I'm in San Diego.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. It's nice down here.
Very. I'm a bit envious myself.
Yeah, I've traveled a lot, extensively, and it's interesting. You meet people and they say, "Oh, where are you from?" And you say, "San Diego." And they said, "What the heck? Like, why would you leave? We dream of being able to go to San Diego."
Yeah.
So, "Oh, I dreamed of being where you are." Like, Ari, I'd love to go down. I've never been to Argentina.
Yeah. In Rockland, California, it takes on a good day 2.25 hours to get to the ocean from where we are. And living in San Diego, it just, I think it would be really nice to be able to get to the ocean in some number of minutes instead.
We would say if there were
exactly.
times. Go ahead.
1 kilometer away from the ocean right now,
Oh,
but it's night, it's winter.
that's
So
right.
useless at this time.
Yeah.
Chilly, I just put the yeah.
There were days when friends and I, we got up, drove, went skiing, came back down and just went to the beach for the evening. Because we're up in the mountains skiing, and then you come back down and go to the beach and hang out, and it was beautiful and warm and all in the same day. It's kind of nice.
That's really nice, Alan.
Someone's got to do it.
I'm not going to say I'm not jealous.
I've been up to your place. I mean, not your personal place, but I've been up to Parallax, and it's
Yes. Yeah, right now it's probably over 100 degrees. I haven't actually looked at the weather today, but for the last few weeks, and typically in August, it rides at highs between 100 and 106 normally.
I like that temperature.
Oh boy, I'll tell you, if you park your car outside and go to a restaurant, have to kind of wait for you try touching the steering wheel and it's like, ow, you've got to run the air to cool it off.
But if you bring leftovers and you put them in the car afterwards, they stay fresh and
It's a
warm.
regular heat lamp, yes. Especially if you put it right on the dashboard.
Yeah.
Sure enough, it's upwards of 96 right now. Holy moly.
Oh, where I am?
Yeah, Rockland.
Okay, yeah, I did not check today. I've been inside all day, but last week we definitely had some above 100 days. And the week before, yeah, we had a good heat wave. Our garden stopped producing.
No
What are you
rain.
growing?
Oh, let's see. We've got bell peppers, eggplant, squash, figs. Figs are still pumping out beautifully.
What kind of figs do you have?
My favorite one is called the Violet de Bordeaux.
Oh, okay.
Never tasted it before. Best. I mean, it's like at the level of I really like kiwis, and so this Violet de Bordeaux. I thought figs were just kind of mushy, and this thing
Oh,
was
man.
like I bit into it, and kind of saw the clouds part and the rays go through. Heard the choir.
We've got 3 figs that are young and they're producing right now, but I never enjoyed figs until I grew them because like you said, by the time they're picked and by the time you get them, they're either yucky.
Yep.
Or they, would just dry them and that's fine. I love dried fruit, but man, when you pluck it right off.
It's truly amazing. Truly is.
All
All right, well, let's resume and
okay.
let's resume and do just a quick little thing about the Cyberbot robot, which allows you to extend these lessons quite a ways. So just to give you an idea of what a network would look like, here is a network of Cyberbot robots. Each of the robots has, of course, a microbit as its controller. And so we have one microbit here that's connected to Ken's computer, and he's typing in information. This script is very similar to the countdown that I was showing you. So the countdown application is the microbit only application. And this one is essentially, instead of counting down, the receiver tells the robot to make a particular maneuver based on the numbers he entered: left wheel speed, right wheel speed, and time to continue at those speeds. Notice that we have a dictionary that's getting transmitted, and that dictionary has the number of milliseconds to do the maneuver, as well as the velocity left and velocity right values. So when he types those in, you could have all of the robots in your classroom essentially responding to the teacher's computer, or if you want to let a particular student drive. Once you get, but the first thing that happens, of course, is that a bunch of students will try to jump in and try to take control of your robots, or possibly even do like a DOS attack kind of thing, where they're like, for example, if these robots did not have the error handling, the exception handling, it would be easy just to give it a malformed, time and speed dictionary, and that would cause exceptions on all these robots, and they'd be dead in the water right there. So these are examples of cybersecurity things that can be done with a robot. Now, something I like about the Cyberbot robot is that it also gives just a physical form of feedback to even really basic code. And just as an example, here are the statements that are used to go forward and then turn right. So 75 and negative 75 are the way to get wheels facing away from each other to go forward. But notice one wheel stops, the other one wheel keeps going. So that essentially causes the robot to pivot. Now, what's really nice is that then you can say, okay, remember the for loops that we did in the coding in the scripting basics chapter? Well, let's put that forward and right turn into a for loop, and lo and behold, you've got your robot going in a square. So at the very basic level, it's really neat. at the network and cyber attack level, it's really neat. It gives essentially another dimension to all of the lessons, from the computer science scripting stuff that we did on Monday and the cybersecurity scripting stuff that we did on Wednesday. The Cyberbot robot, in addition to just basic navigation, it comes with some sensors that students could build as circuits. Like this is the whisker sensor that an electrical connection allows the program to, or the script to understand that it just bumped into something and needs to back up, turn, and go in a new direction. There's also light sensors. And there it is, following a light. And each one of these, of course, is a different script, and the students go through an entire chapter and they learn the theory of operation of the sensor, and then they do an example of how to make it go. And it looks like infrared object detection is not going to be with us. Oh, here we go. So this particular example is just whiskers, but without the contact. Now, since the microbit has really cool things like the built-in radio and the accelerometer and compass, that opens up a lot of options that cannot be done with, say, the BOE Shield bot or one of the other variations of robots, because well, I mean, they can be done. It's just that you have to buy extra hardware. Whereas with the microbit, you've got all these extra things like a display to show you. You don't even have to build an LED circuit necessarily to see that the whisker connections are made. And so this is the example of the keyboard control. And we start with tethered keyboard control, then switch to radio keyboard control. And eventually, after the radio control, the challenge for the students is, okay, apply a cipher to this so that, you know, apply try and accept, in this case, to make sure that malformed data won't mess your script up, and then apply a cipher so that other students can't eavesdrop on you and see what commands you're issuing to your robot for the sake of a contest. And then, of course, you know, there's the networked keyboard control. There's also tilt control, which is pretty neat. Show you here real quick. Want to get Chuck started at about 1/4 past. So in this one, the microbit has been disconnected. Both microbits have been disconnected from the computer. And watch carefully. You'll hopefully be able to see. I'll zoom this in just a little bit. There we go. There is a little minute hand pointer that's essentially pointing in the direction that a small ball bearing would roll off the microbit if you were to tilt it. And that pointer is showing where you're tilting the microbit on the receiver end as well. And so basically, if you tilt the microbit away from you, the robot will go forward. If you tilt it towards you, it'll go backward. And of course, left and right also give you turning. And this is yet another hackable application that can be protected with a cipher and encryption. There is also an electronics discovery kit called What's a Microcontroller, where you can learn to use voltmeters, oscilloscopes as you use the parts that are commonly found in many inventions like indicator lights, push buttons, motors, potentiometer that you can twist a knob and it will give you a different value. So this is another thing you might be interested in. And I'll talk about upcoming events where you could attend and learn about how to use the Cyberbot, as well as how to introduce electronics using the microbit And this is kind of a step above the other electronic lessons you've seen, since it has a virtual or a voltmeter. It has scripts that make the microbit take circuit measurements, and you can actually see them on a web page that shows you the virtual equipment version of those measurements, namely the voltmeter and the oscilloscope. All right. By the way, the Cyberbot robot is a collaboration between cyber.org and Parallax. In fact, Tommy and Chuck came to Parallax and said, "Hey, we really think you should have a microbit powered robot to add to your fleet of different kinds of robots." And initially we were skeptical, but we started to really see the light, and went with them all the way to a full robot and nice online textbook. But that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg of what cyber.org has for you in terms of curriculum. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Chuck. I guess, Chuck, you
Yeah.
can screen share. Excellent.
Yep, there we go. Thank you. Amy, what a great first hour. And
Oh, thank
awesome
you.
to see everybody here. Thanks everybody for joining. I got a quick question. If y'all don't mind, open up that reactions tab. I got to do a quick little survey here. I'm curious how many of y'all are, I'm going to ask the easier for me to tally question first. How many of y'all are not high school? In other words, middle school or younger? Give me a little thumbs up if you're middle school or younger. Thanks, Alan. Thanks, Ivan. Robert, 3, middle school or younger. Cool. So I got about 3, maybe 4, because I know one for sure who's in the audience who didn't show me that thumb up. I'm going to assume the rest are high school. If you want to give me a thumb up to confirm high school, go right ahead. Look at all those thumbs up. Nice. Nancy, Stacy, Stan, Kevin, Terry, thank you. Good. It's also my ability to make sure you're paying attention. Good stuff. Was there a question? I saw a hand go up and then a hand went down. So,
Adam, you mentioned neither. So in which
yeah.
category do you fit?
Good call, Alan. University. All right, right on. So that's the one audience that we don't particularly cater to. We do and we don't. If university has K-12 outreach, we love for you to be a part of that. College. All right, there we go. Pre-service teachers. That's all day, every day. So, Amy, thank you. So Ivan, let me get to my presentation. Hopefully, answer that question. But I'm going to say all of the above. We have content here for elementary, middle, and high school. So, real quick, my name is Chuck Gardner. So we had a recent restructure, and I'm now the senior director for government and nonprofit engagement with cyber.org. It's a mouthful, I know, but we've got some really fantastic folks who are in Northwest Louisiana and Texas and North Carolina and Tennessee who are writing some really good curriculum. And that used to be my job, but I've moved around a couple times since then. I was associate director for a bit, and now working with federal and state partners to increase awareness of our content and opportunities for teachers across the country. So cyber.org, if you don't know, give me a thumb up if you've never heard of cyber.org before tonight, or actually before this workshop. If you hadn't heard of cyber.org before this workshop, give me a thumb up. Okay, Ivan, excellent. Hence your question. Yes, Daniel, I will drop my email in here in just a second. So cyber.org is funded through a grant from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA. We've been working with DHS since 2012. 2011 was a kind of a proof of concept year. And then 2012 was our first funded year from DHS. So we're approaching our 10th year. We're going to kick off our 10th year under DHS funding here in October. But we've been in Northwest Louisiana changing the shape of K-12 education since 2008. Back then it was the Cyber Innovation Center that was doing all this work. And then we became NYSERC, or the National Integrated Cyber Education Research Center. And finally, in 2020, we rebranded to cyber.org, which is fantastic because it's not only our name, but it's also our address. So cyber.org is who we are now. And we are, I would say about 90% of our funding comes from DHS and the CISA agency. Real quick, before I go, I'm going to close tabs as I finish them. So I want to hit this tab first. We were talking about weather during the break. And I don't know if you've ever seen windy.com before, but if you love live artwork, I love windy.com. If I were still in the classroom, I would have this up to as kind of the do now slide, right? As you come in, take a look at all of this weather that's happening. This is right now showing wind patterns across the globe. So anything rotating clockwise is high pressure. Anything rotating counterclockwise is low pressure. So interestingly, right here, we have a little bit of low pressure in the Atlantic, but there is no low pressure system right now across the country, maybe a little bit here in the Four Corners, but for the most part, we have clockwise rotation, which is all high pressure. But I can go to radar and satellite, I can see weather radar, and I can see weather across the country, and all these flashes represent lightning. And if you turn your sound on, I don't know if you can hear now, I don't think I shared sound, but this will also click every time lightning happens across the country. So all across the Southeast, we've got some lightning. Up across the Midwest and across the Rockies, we've got some lightning happening. So really great opportunities. One more thing, as you go to wind, you can go and see what the jet stream's doing. So I can knock that up to 13,000 kilometer sensors, and we can see where the jet stream is. Not a lot of jet stream pressure right now, but we've got a little bit coming in off of Northwest US and a little bit of high velocity exit off of Northeast US. Not only that, we can zoom out and I can see where the wind is really cooking up in the jet stream. So northern, looks like northern China up through southeast Russia, we've got a lot of jet stream activity. We can bring that back down to the surface. And here now you can start to see some all high pressure over the Pacific, a little bit of low pressure over the Pacific. We got some action down here in the South Pacific, South Atlantic. No real low pressure to talk about. Here a little bit of low pressure off the North Atlantic. So, we're in hurricane season, so we should be seeing some low pressure, but we've been really lucky so far, knock on wood, not to see a lot of low pressure. Anyway, windy.com, some really fabulous opportunities to bring in geography, weather, and look at this awesome use of data into your classrooms. So I digress.
Yeah, now I understand though why you keep an eye on that living in Louisiana.
Yeah. We are very lucky that we're almost into September without a major storm hitting the area here.
Nice.
So our name is our address. If you don't have access to our content, you want to come over here and click the sign up link. That's going to take you to our sign up form. A couple of quick questions. We just want to verify that you're again, K-12 in the country, in the US, or higher ed with an impact on K-12. And we say the country because this is DHS funded. Our neighbors to the north or neighbors to the south. Unfortunately, you've got to be a teacher in the US or a territory to gain access to this content. So what are you going to get access to? A lot of great content. You're going to get all of our content is hosted on the Canvas learning management system, hosted at instructure.com. So cyber.instructure.com is our library. This is where all the content is hosted. Cyber Literacy 2, these are platforms that are built on Parallax products. The Bobot, our ShieldBot with Arduino, and the CyberBot are three platforms that Cyber Literacy and Cyber Literacy 2 content is built on. In the robot section of the Bobot, this is the content that I wrote and taught when I was teaching high school down in New Orleans. We're doing everything out of the Bobot book. We've just got it broken down into a nice kind of teacher format. So we've got PowerPoints, student worksheets, teacher master notes to lead you through those through those sessions, but this is definitely intended for a sage on the stage, whereas the content from Parallax in learn.parallax.com really can be applied to students leading their own way, kind of student-paced content. They'll work through all of those modules. They have the ability to work through all those modules on their own. If you're looking for something that might be, a little more teacher focused, we've got those exact same lessons here. And you'll see a lot of the stuff when I go to Coding Fundamentals that you've been working through these last 3 days. That's also located there. So again, this is all based on the Bobot. We've got the same content for the Arduino ShieldBot, and then again, the CyberBot. So you'll see the same lessons. And this one's obviously all Python based because the Bobot is basic based. This one is all based in Python. So it's the exact same lessons. We work through the same content, but just a different language. And there are some differences in how we introduce Python here, or how we introduce Arduino C in the Arduino platform, or how we introduce BASIC. But robotics is where things change. Liberal arts, semester exams, they're all the same across the platforms.
Quick comment.
Literacy, yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to mention that the leftmost tab is the cyber.org homepage. And what Chuck did to get to the Canvas environment was he basically hit the login. Yeah.
Yep.
And so after you receive an account and get logged in, then you will end up. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. And we'll give you that information in an email that comes after you sign up for the content. The other thing I wanted to mention, so our dashboard, again, this little dashboard icon takes me back to every one of these icons represents essentially a course. Cyber Literacy 2 are high school courses. We've got K-8 in our cybersecurity basics. We've got 10-12 in our high school cybersecurity, 9-12 in our cyber society. Cyber literacy, these are the cyber engineering courses using those robotics platforms from Parallax, as well as some humanities. You saw liberal arts in there. In cyber literacy 2, we go a little bit deeper. We talk about systems engineering here because we want students to combine multiple sensors, right? So how do I make some kind of like a moon rover, right? Something that I'm going to like a curiosity that I'm going to drop on the surface of Mars. I need not only a level sensor so that it doesn't tilt into a ravine or a valley that it can't navigate out of, but maybe some line follower so that I could, maintain a predetermined course, some kind of distance sensor so that I can avoid obstacles. We call this systems engineering because we're going to use all of those sensors that Parallax makes available with these devices. I'm going to introduce them one at a time, right? We're going to talk about push buttons and whiskers and the infrared circuit. But when we get down here towards the end of the course, we're going to be combining multiple components together, phototransistors and Hall effect sensors. This minefield challenge is a really great way to kind of bring everything together, including LEDs as a method of output. So cyber literacy, some really great cyber engineering using these robotics platforms, all from Parallax. And both of these courses, Cyberlit 1 and Cyberlit 2, have been ported to function with both Bobots, Arduino ShieldBots, and CyberBots. But not everyone's cut out for the technical stuff. So we've got a lot of great non-technical high school content like this Cyber Society course. Here we're talking to students about cyber law and politics, terror, and ethics. We've got a great new set of lessons on big data. We're writing a data science course now that's going to be revealed in the probably next academic year, 23-24. But this Cyber Society course is all low-tech / no-tech research-based opportunities for students to work in small groups and to work on soft skills like presenting and critical thinking and collaborating to solve some of these really good problems that they're going to be facing as leaders in cyber. But then this last thing I'll mention, so these are all, I'll click one just to give you a quick demo. We've got 5 lessons in here based on the politics of cyber. So we're going to talk to students about what it means to, what is hacktivism, social media campaigns, cyber politics as cyber warfare, fake news and hashtag activism. And most of these topics have the same format, 5 lessons for teachers to work through to talk to students about, conversations in cyber. With the exception of ASIS. So ASIS is an acronym that stands for Analysis and Investigation of Cyber-Themed Scenarios. And what we're doing here is we're actually putting students in a kind of choose your own adventure mode. They're going to research, they're going to try and solve some kind of scenario that has happened somewhere in the world. For example, there's been a lockdown at an international hotel on the morning of peace accord meetings. The students need to work through in a series of briefing folders, right? The who, what, when, where, and why. What's going on with this at this particular event that, as a DHS representative, right? What do I need to know? All the information is provided in these briefing folders. Students don't have to go online to do any research. It's all contained here. Catch the leakers. Classified information is appearing in domestic newspapers. We've got protests on a bridge in Chicago, and some kind of malfunction occurs in the bridge, causing injuries. So students have to work through these scenarios to try and figure out what happened and what the US should do in response. And we have 8 scenarios right now that are online for students to work through. And these are really fantastic examples of maybe post-test, right? Post high stakes testing season. You can take students through these scenarios. And it's kind of like students are going to live through a movie because they get briefing folder 1, and then maybe next Friday you give them briefing folder 2, and next Friday you give them briefing folder 3. So over a series of a month, right, they may work through this scenario. So we have some professional development coming up for Cyber Society, where you're going to learn all about this content in a little bit more than the 5 minutes that I'm giving it here. But Cyber Society is some really great high school content for teachers who maybe don't want to get into the technical cybersecurity. And then the other stuff we have for primary ages, I want to show you coding fundamentals, because that's where a lot of the content you've been working through this week lives in our teacher modeled source. But we've also, this cybersecurity basics, brand new for us. If you're familiar with cyber.org, we wrote a set of cybersecurity learning standards that were published last year. And this content is based on those standards. So our standards were divided into 3 categories: computing systems, digital citizenship, and security. It's great to have standards, but it's also important to be able to have content to go along with it. So we had a group of teachers from across the country who wrote those standards, including Monica Mormon, who's part of the cohort that's been meeting this week. She's here tonight. So we had teachers who developed these standards, and now cyber.org is coming behind that process and writing content to support those standards. For example, in digital citizenship, we've got content that supports conversations on motivations of people who are online, and discussing types of people online and why they may choose to behave in different ways. This is where we're going to start talking about malicious actors. And then we're going to go and talk about threats that you can encounter through online platforms, and then what it means to have personally identifiable information and why we need to protect it. And we're doing this for K2, 3, 5, and 6, 8. These are the audiences that the standards were designed for. So we've got content that's going to support conversations in those classrooms. And I'll take a look through in the K2. I've got teacher notes and a PowerPoint. I've got in the 3-5 teacher notes, PowerPoints, and some handouts for students. And we've got some content on its way for the 6-8 hacker motivations and 6-8 threat actors, all of this lying within the motivations of people online content. So these are all mapped to our standards. If you're interested in learning more about the standards, that's at cyber.org/standards. And these are available for download if you're interested in reading the standards that we wrote. Thank you, Andy. Well-timed opportunity there.
Chuck, can I ask a quick question?
Yes, please.
I'm looking at your navigation and watching your navigation, and I know you're on a Mac. That's okay. I'll forgive you.
Thank you.
And you've got apparently different icons, graphics off to the left. So as I was following and selecting like courses and going to Cyber Society, things were slightly different, and I was.
Yeah. So you can move these icons around in your Canvas dashboard. So I have some things in different spaces. And obviously, as a cyber.org admin, I've got different tools on these icons on the left. But you should at least have cyber literacy 2, cybersecurity basics, cybersecurity.
I wasn't, it wasn't giving me access or showing me. I mean, I'm logged in. I'm familiar with you guys and
Yeah.
know and love Tommy.
Yeah. What don't you have access to?
I didn't see some of the files and some of the pages. If I typed them in manually, I was able to get to them. So perhaps I missed, or as you were moving your mouse quickly, I didn't catch kind of where you had clicked. So I apologize.
Alan, I'm definitely willing to connect offline to make sure that you have access to everything. I mean, obviously there are, let me before I say
I
this.
have those. I've got my icons.
Okay.
I'll let this continue perhaps at the end. If you've got a moment, maybe we can take a sec.
So there's my email if anyone has any questions as we go through. So Stephanie, real quick in the comment in the chat, question about exporting Canvas. Unfortunately, that's not possible, but what we do have the opportunity to do, and I'll use cyber literacy as an example. And again, you probably can't see these ones with the eyeball crossed out, but every course has the files tab, which you should have access to. And that will allow you to download with one click all of the files in the course. But the structure of the Canvas course can't be exported. I know it can, right? If you expert Canvas users, it's possible, but we're not providing that simply because we want to make sure that you understand as a teacher, you're getting access to all of the content, including semester exams, study guides, student notes, and teacher documents. And if we provided that export in one click that you could then import to your students, the potential of giving them access to all of that content is really, really great. So we allow you to export all of the files with a click, but we do ask that you create your own structure so that you share only the documents that you want to share rather than the entire course. Our Canvas is designed for teacher access only, not for student access. So in actually our case, you all are the students of our Canvas, and me and my colleagues at cyber.org are all the teachers of our Canvas. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on cybersecurity in just a second. So before I get there, because there's some really exciting stuff, which is kind of the next level, some of the brute force that you did with the Cyberbot, I do want to show you where our version of the content you worked on this week lives. So this course is called Coding Fundamentals. This is where we post all of our microbit and Cyberbot content that doesn't live in cyber literacy. And we've got two versions of this, and it's mainly microbit based. And you know that with a microbit, I can program in block style or Python language. So we've got a series of lessons that are all based on block programming with the microbit. We've got 10 lessons here that talk through everything from hello world on to some pretty advanced logic. We've got projects. So these are not necessarily full-blown lessons, but projects using the magnetometer and creating a compass, using the 5x5 LED grid to create picture dice. Andy mentioned voltmeters. We've got that in a block style programming opportunity. But then the third section of this course also brings in some of that cybersecurity. When Andy was talking about Caesar and shift ciphers, we've got an activity using block to create shift ciphers. Visionaire, or a double shift cipher, a little more complex shift mechanism. We've got a Visionaire activity here and some Morse code. And Andy mentioned Enigma, one of my favorite World War II references. We've got a block style Enigma device that we can create with the microbit. But you'll see a lot of similarities also in the Python case, where we've got, again, those same top 10 lessons, hello world, programming with displays and animation, here presented in Python. And what I like about this is this provides for some really great opportunities in differentiation. If you've got some students who aren't familiar with programming, you want to take them through the block style, hello world, animation, images, variables and images, and buttons and conditionals. I can do that in block. For those who get it or maybe are a little more advanced, I can do a lot of those same lessons here in Python. Hello world, scrolling text, variables and images, buttons and conditionals. But then we go on into a lot of those kind of advanced topics that you guys were working through: passwords and security, brute force attack, a replay attack using multiple microbits transmitting a message through a classroom, and how it can be a sniffer in the middle of it. So that's all presented here from a teacher-focused perspective, as opposed to students aren't going to necessarily be able to succeed if they work through this on their own. They're going to need that teacher guidance, which is how most of our curriculum is developed. Yeah, so this is using all MicroPython. So I downloaded 2 lessons just to show you real quick what our teacher-focused Python content looks like. And this is the passwords and security lesson. So you saw some of this today, at least, when we talk through a kind of a brute force attack. So we give the teacher a little bit of instruction on how to get ready for this lesson. There's some, where's the, maybe that was it. The, what we needed to do in advance before we got here. We needed to work through, no, maybe it's the next one that has the prerequisites. There it is. So there is no prerequisites necessarily in this lesson. We get right into conversations on passwords, right? This is the discussion that happens before the lesson. But what you'll see here is what we're going to do is we have both microbit programs here. We have a password of ABBB, and then we have some solutions where we're going to guess A's and B's with the A button and the B button. And we're going to, just like you worked through today with the 3 combinations of 0 and 1, we've got 4 combinations of A's and B's. But then when we brute force, we're going to bring in dictionaries. We're going to bring in conditional statements, fors and loops. We're going to bring in variables. So there's a lot more content happening here. But what's cool about this is we're using 2 different bots. So one contains the username Panda and the password Bear. And then the hacker bot is going to take a whole alphabet approach, and we talk through with the students that we gained the username. We just don't know the password yet. We know it's a 5-letter password, but we're going to send the username Panda every time, and then we're going to brute force through the alphabet with AAAAA, followed by AAAAB, and there's our nested loop. We're counting up through 26 letters. We're going to send that password string every time, and we're going to wait for a match. And the password for user Panda was Bear, BEAR. So we'll get it pretty quickly. And you see it's waiting a 1/4 second per packet. So this is going to happen pretty quickly. But this is the way our lessons are focused with the Python content for high school in microbit. So there's some really great cybersecurity content on the learn.parallax.com, really great cybersecurity content here in our coding fundamentals. And when you're ready for what's next is this high school technical cybersecurity content, which is based on the Security Plus credential from CompTIA. And I just want to give you a quick demo of what this looks like in the couple of minutes we have left. Content has been developed to give a student the ability to practice every objective of the Security Plus exam, whether it's through a lab, whether it's through a case study conversation on that topic, or it's just a teacher-led lesson on some of that material that I can't necessarily present in a lab style setting. But this is all based on a cyber range, which is using a version of Linux referred to as Kali, as well as a vulnerable Windows installation. And what students are going to do, they're going to work through credential harvesting using the social engineering toolkit. And we're going to see how a real attack happens and what kind of information is gleaned through that attack, because we want to be able to talk to students about, now that you've seen the offensive, we can talk through the defensive. And how do you talk to my dogs are waiting to go outside. How do you talk to colleagues about not falling for those kinds of attacks?
It's barely audible on our end.
Okay, awesome. So this is a sneak peek. No screenshots. I know we're recording, but that's okay. This is a sneak peek at our cyber range, which we're gonna reveal October 15th. But this is an example of my classroom with 5 students. We're not collecting student information. These are randomly generated names using fantastic Louisiana terminology. Born Benoit, Bacchus Benoit, Ardonis Bergeron, Rex Thibodeau. So we've got a bunch of users here, and I'm the teacher. And what I can do is I can open up my Kali system, and this is going to, let me refresh real quick, make sure these machines are still live. Here we go. Okay. Here we go. So this is my teacher installations Kali machine, as it opens up here in just a second. So this is a Kali machine, and I can open up my command line with this icon here. Oh, I got 2 of them now, so I'm going to close one, and I'm going to make this one bigger. Command Shift plus plus plus. Oh, Shift plus plus plus.
So basically, this is one of 2 computers or more that they can use, and essentially, a cyber attack can be mounted from one computer to another in this virtual space, and each student can have the experience of mounting the attack, of seeing the effects, and then of also defending the computer that was vulnerable to the attack.
Yep. So since I highlighted social engineering, credential harvesting, we're going to do a quick credential harvesting attack. And that's referred to as social engineering, as we were talking about earlier tonight, right? That process of asking enough questions, asking specific questions to get specific answers is social engineering. Here's a digital social engineering attack. So I'm going to choose option 1, social engineering attack. As it fires up the system, it's going to give me another menu in just a second. For 2, which is a website attack vector, I'm going to use a website attack using a credential harvester method. A web template, I'm going to model this. There's my IP address. I'm going to use a Google device. So right now what's happening is there's a website that this Kali machine is currently hosting live and online. I need to open up another one of these so I can get my IP address, 179.240.
Online in the sandbox that you can see. I want to emphasize that this is not completely online. It's online in the sandbox of their system.
Sandboxed. Yep. So I can't go into a new tab and hit this address, but I'm going to go to a student. I'm going to now, Andy, help me remember 179.240. I'm going to go to a Windows machine. I'm going to go check out Bourne's Windows machine. I'm going to open up this terminal. And again, that was one more time. Where'd it go? There it is, 179.240. I'm going to go back to Bourne's Windows machine, 179.240. So here is Windows 7. I'm going to go to Internet Explorer.
179.240.
I'm not going to register, but I'm going to go to my IP address, 179.240. Uh-oh, my keyboard's not working here. 10.0.179.240. And I'm looking at a Google sign-in page. Why does this keep popping up? I'm looking at a Google sign-in page. I'm going to come back here in just one second. I want to show you what happened on Chuck's Kali machine. The screen changed, and it says here, oh, we've got someone who's clicked on our link. So let's see what that person falls for. So go back to Bourne's Windows machine. So this is the victim. This is the the Monday morning employee who comes and clicks on that link and it says, oh, your credentials have been compromised. Log in now and change your password. So I'm going to log into my email, which is chuck@chuck.chuck. I pay a lot for that URL. And this is my password. I have a really long and effective password. So sure, let's let Internet Explorer remember. I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't sign into my Google. I'm back at Google homepage now. I was expecting to be able to log in, but I'm not logged in. In fact, if I go back, right, this was an HTTP, not even an HTTPS. It said I was supposed to be signing in. When we get to this page, it's not even signed in, right? So I have some curious things have just happened. But if I go back to Chuck's Kali machine, lo and behold, the damage has been done. I've already fallen victim, and there's my email and there's my password. And this is how credential harvesting attacks happen. And we can show students this in this safe, as Andy said, of sandboxed virtual environment. And this is the what's next, right? After I get through some of those cybersecurity examples with Microbit and with Cyberbot, I've got this real opportunity to demonstrate authentic attacks using this CyberRange environment. Yeah, Windows 7. So we use Windows 7 because we're dealing with high school kids and we want to make sure we're not teaching them on the latest and the greatest. We're not going to show them how to do these things on Windows 10 because that may get them in some real trouble. The nice thing about these Windows 7 machines is that these are Service Pack 0. They are the Swiss cheese of vulnerable environments. I can do just about anything I want here and not do it on a modern machine because all of these holes have been patched. All of these vulnerabilities have been patched. So we're not going to give students the tools to really cause them any danger in their lives because we want them to get these jobs and not get a jail time. So we hope, indeed. So this, Alan, is all Windows-based, browser-based, right? So I don't need technology in the classroom to do this. This is all hosted on AWS. October 15th, this CyberRange environment will go live for teachers to practice with. If you're looking for something right now, uscyberrange.org is our partner at Virginia Tech that provides an equivalent platform using Kali, Linux, and a vulnerable Windows 7. But this one costs about $14 per user per month. So we're hoping to make it a little bit cheaper starting in October. And that's it. I'm sorry I tore through this. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to hang out afterwards. But Andy, great week. Thanks everybody for hanging out. And if there's anything cyber.org can do to help you with cyberbots, with microbits, with Parallax, any questions you have at all, by all means, send our way.
Well, and thank you, Chuck. This is, I hope, an eye opener for quite a few of you. I know that when I went to the workshop a couple months ago at their CEDF conference in Washington, D.C., I remember looking at that with eyes wide open. It was just a really great example. Okay, well, thank you so much, Chuck.
Chuck, I have one thing to say. Chuck, I was able to get the grant a few months ago for cyberbots, and I don't know if people know enough about the grant that people can apply for.
Yeah, I'll drop that. I'll drop that on the chat. So we have a technology grant program where teachers can request for support on getting technology in the classroom, whether it be access to the CyberRange or, as you said, access to cyberbots. We'll get you a class set of cyberbots and we'll get them from Parallax shipped right to your door so that you can bring some of this content into your classroom. DHS has been a fantastic partner in helping us not only develop really great curriculum, but to support teachers with everything they need in the classroom.
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't skip that. Thank you, Stan and Chuck.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Chuck before we continue? Let's see, how much time have we got? 5 minutes. I'm going to blaze through the rest of this. Actually, yeah, let me blaze through that and then we'll do some questions and answers afterwards. Okay. Just a few things. One is the we have some upcoming events. And so in this slide, you can actually follow it to the Parallax events, but I'll show you how to get there. It's www.parallax.com. And then you can point at community and select events. And then you'll see this is the current event that is going to be moved to past events, probably first thing next week. And but upcoming in September, late September, we have our Cyberbot workshop. We supply you with a Cyberbot robot for that workshop. Some of you may find that to be of interest. We also have the multi-core ActivityBot 360 coming up. So it's programmable in Blockly and or C. The workshop will be focusing on Blockly. And then the electronics, discovering electronics with the microbit that I mentioned, we have that coming up in October as well. So early October for the Cyberbot, late October for the electronics introduction. And so these are what we have coming up for educator workshops. And so I encourage you to sign up if one or more of these items look like they'll be useful to you in the classroom. File, whoopsie, full screen. There we go. All right. Just a reminder that learn.parallax.com is where all the Parallax student workbooks live. And then educator materials are at learn.parallax.com, and then you click the educators tab. Now I have something to show those of you who placed a request for a different login option. Let's see here. If I follow this link, look at that. Ta-da! So now if you want to log in, you don't have to go into, for example, Cyberbot resources and then down to the bottom of the page to log in. It's right up front. As soon as you click educators, you can use your login to sign in. And after doing so, you can get to the educator resources. Now, some of it right now I'm not logged in, and some of this you don't need to be logged in to look at the slides, strategy guides, standards matrix, scope and sequence. But we want to log in, which I'll do off screen with an abundance of caution. I was going to go a couple minutes over, but I really do want you to see the, let's see here. There we go. Now I'm in. Okay. So once you're logged in, you can go back to educators, and the cybersecurity stuff is all under Cyberbot right now. And so this is the, so basically after you log in, you'll see instead of a message saying you have to log in, you'll see a direct link to the assessment material. And here, for example, is the encryption intro assessment materials, and we can download that and open it up. And take a look inside at, so there's an answer key for what the students are challenged to do in the actual student web book. There are some things provided without answers. And so those are the your turn answer keys. And then there's some extra material that can be used as quizzes and worksheets and stuff like that here, along with the solutions. So those are our educator resources. Then let's see here. If you're interested in purchasing microbits, we are a microbit channel partner. We're going to have microbits even when you know, I know there have been some shortages from supply chain and whatnot, but if there are microbits to be had, we will have them. And you can find those by clicking shop in the www.parallax.com page. And then you can click microbit and you can go shopping for modules, kits like the Cyberbot robot, and so on. Those are all there. So just go to www.parallax.com, www.parallax.com. And my browser slowed down. And then shop, microbit. And it will show you all microbit options. And then, for example, if you want to focus on the Cyberbot robot, you could select the robotics subcategory and see the kits, or if you want just microbit modules, here are the V2 Go bundles that you received, and then the club bundles for equipping your classroom. And let's see. Here's a quick screenshot. If you need to call us, we have an educator hotline. What is that, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., I believe, for teachers. That will go through to our sales line initially, but they are poised to advance you to an engineer if you're, for example, in the classroom trying to get microbits to work and they're not working or something like that. If you need educational support, you'll get forwarded to Ari, me, or Ken. Here's a slide from cyber.org. They thank you. If you want to jump in and say thanks, Chuck, now's your cue.
Thank you, everybody. We appreciate you. That is our building in Northwest Louisiana.
Yes. And then
Nice.
this is our building in sunny, hot Rockland, California. And thank you for coming, everyone from Parallax. And that concludes today's this workshop. And we'll go ahead and move on to some questions, answers, and open discussion. And Ari, if you could stop the recording. Thanks for coming, everyone.